There's something electric about discovering a movie that no one talks about, like flipping through dusty vinyl and finding a lost classic. These aren't just hidden gems, they're cinematic gold, waiting to be found. Some slipped through the cracks, others were ahead of their time, but every single one, worth watching. Some movies vanish, but Dominic and Eugene never really left. It's a film that doesn't chase attention, it just sits with you. Quiet, steady, unforgettable. Tom Hulce and Ray Liotta, you don't just watch them, you believe them. Their bond is unspoken, but you feel it in every gesture, every pause where words fail. Hulce's Nicky moves through life with a gentle simplicity, but the world isn't always gentle back. Liotta's Gino, he's caught between duty and a future that's pulling him away. And then there's that moment, a dented can in a grocery aisle, a simple choice, barely noticeable, until it hits you. Nicky chooses the thing others overlook, and that's him, isn't it? Seeing worth where others see flaws. This film doesn't shout, it doesn't need to. No overplayed drama, no forced sentiment, just life, in all its messy, beautiful contradictions. It's a story about love, about loyalty, about how sometimes taking care of someone means letting go. Some movies demand space. This one just finds a way in, without asking, without forcing. And once it's there, you don't forget it. New York, 1977. The heat is unbearable. The tension even worse. Summer of Sam doesn't just tell you what it felt like, it makes you sweat through every frame. Spike Lee takes a serial killer story and turns it inside out. It's not about the son of Sam, it's about the people, the paranoia, the way fear infects a neighborhood like a virus. John Leguizamo and Adrian Brody, two friends pulled in opposite directions, one trying to hold on to the old ways, the other becoming someone he barely recognizes. Their story is loud, messy, and painfully real. And then there's the music. Disco and punk colliding in a city that feels like it's ready to burn. The streets don't feel like movie sets. They feel lived in, graffiti-covered, sweat-stained, buzzing with energy. But what stays with me? The looks. The side-eye glances, the way suspicion spreads faster than the truth. It's not the killer tearing people apart, it's themselves. Some films fade with time. This one? It still pulses, like a distant siren in the night, growing louder the longer you listen. A classroom, a woman at the door, a life about to change. Educating Rita isn't just about learning, it's about redefining who you are. Julie Walters as Rita, she doesn't just play the role, she embodies it. A hairdresser with a sharp tongue and a hunger for something more. Not just books, not just knowledge, but escape. From the life that's been scripted for her. Michael Caine, his Frank is a professor drowning in his own regret. He's meant to teach her. But watch how the power shifts. The more she learns, the more he realizes how much he's lost. What makes this film special? It's not just the words, though Willie Russell's dialogue is sharp enough to cut. It's the spaces between them, the pauses where a look says everything. There's a scene, simple but devastating. Rita, standing outside a university party, realizing she doesn't belong. Not yet. You feel it, that ache of knowing you're caught between two worlds. Some movies lecture. This one listens. It's funny, but it stings. It's warm, but it burns. And when it ends, you're left with this feeling that you just witnessed something real. Some films take years to sink in. Terms of Endearment hits immediately. It's not just a story, it's a life, unfolding in real time. Shirley MacLaine and Deborah Winger, two women, two generations, locked in a relationship so sharp, so raw, it feels like eavesdropping. They fight, they laugh, they collide, because love isn't always pretty, but it's always there. And then there's Jack Nicholson. A washed-up astronaut with a smirk and a drink, hiding something deeper. The way he moves through this film, 1 minute larger than life, the next, small, vulnerable. It's a balance few actors could pull off. What makes this movie stand apart? It doesn't beg for your tears. It earns them. Every moment is unscripted emotion, messy, awkward, beautifully human. No big speeches, just the kind of silences that say more than words. There's a scene, just a simple conversation in a parking lot, and yet it holds more weight than any dramatic monologue. That's what this film gets right. The little things. Some stories linger. Terms of Endearment never leaves. It just stays in the back of your mind, waiting to hit you when you least expect it. The Grifters, 1990, a movie that doesn't just play the game, it tears it apart, piece by piece. It's not about slick heists or charming conmen, this is the grimy side of the hustle, where survival means outsmarting the people you should trust. John Cusack, Angelica Houston, Annette Bening, 3 characters locked in a game of shifting alliances, where every glance, every hesitation could mean winning or losing everything. Cusack's Roy isn't your usual con man. He's caught between 2 worlds, too sharp to be a victim, too blind to see the trap closing in. Houston's Lily? She's on another level, calculating, ruthless, always 3 steps ahead. And Bening's Myra? Dangerous in a way that's almost disarming. But it's not just the characters that make this unforgettable. Stephen Frears directs like a surgeon, cutting deep into greed, desperation, and the slow, inevitable collapse of those who think they're in control. The dialogue? Tight. The tension? Unbearable. There's no glamour here, just quiet betrayals, long silences, and the kind of choices that can't be undone. It's been over 30 years, and The Grifters still hits like a sucker punch. Some movies make you root for the con, this one makes you wonder if anyone walks away clean. Finding movies like this, it's like uncovering a lost record, something you didn't know you needed, but now, you can't imagine not knowing it. And that's exactly what we do here at Vintage Verse, resurrecting films that deserve another look. So if you're into forgotten classics, overlooked gems, and deep dive movie discoveries, make sure to hit subscribe. Enemy Mine, 1985. A sci-fi movie that doesn't just explore space, it digs deep into what makes us human. On the surface, it's about 2 sworn enemies, one human, one alien, crash-landed on a barren world where survival means working together. But beneath the sci-fi adventure, this is a film about understanding, about how hatred can fade when we're forced to see each other as more than just the other. Dennis Quaid's pilot, full of pride and resentment. Louis Gossett Jr.'s Drac, equally stubborn and fierce. 2 beings raised to despise one another, trapped in a situation where they have no choice but to rely on each other. At first, it's all hostility, taunts, threats, mistrust, but as time passes, the lines blur. Enemy, ally, family. Wolfgang Peterson directs with a painter's eye, every frame drenched in atmosphere, the alien landscape feeling both hostile and strangely serene. The makeup? Astounding. Gossett Jr. disappears into his role, turning what could have been a one-note creature into something deeply compelling. Why did this film slip through the cracks? Maybe it was too genre-blending for its time, part war film, part survival story, part intimate character study. But today, it feels timeless, a reminder that conflict is only temporary, and that even the deepest divides can be bridged. Some sci-fi movies dazzle with effects. Enemy Mine leaves you thinking about connections. The Vanishing, 1988. A thriller that doesn't just unsettle, it gets under your skin and stays there. There's no loud chaos here, no over-the-top chases or last-minute heroics, just a slow, unnerving unraveling, like watching a nightmare unfold in broad daylight. It starts with a simple, universal fear. Someone vanishes. No warning, no struggle, just gone. Rex and Saskia are young in love, traveling through France, until she disappears at a rest stop. No trace, no answers, just a gap where she used to be. 3 years later, Rex is still obsessed. The world moves on, but he can't. Because some things don't fade, some questions need answers. What makes this film terrifying isn't what it shows, it's what it withholds. The dread isn't in the shadows, it's in the bright, ordinary moments. In the smile of a stranger. In the way the villain, so disturbingly normal, plans everything with cold, detached precision. George Sluizer directs with chilling restraint, no gimmicks, no cheap thrills, just a slow, steady descent into something far worse than we expect. And that ending, that final moment, if you know, you know. Hollywood tried to remake this in the 90s, but they didn't understand what made it work. The fear in The Vanishing doesn't come from what you see, it comes from the inescapable feeling that in a moment, anyone can disappear and the world will keep moving without them. Cutter's Way, 1981, a film that doesn't just exist, It lingers like smoke after a fire, like a wound that never quite heals. Some movies scream for attention. This one burns, slow, deliberate, impossible to shake. It's a thriller, but not the kind with clean answers. It's a mystery, but the real mystery? The people. Jeff Bridges plays Richard Bone, drifting through life, always just on the edge of something meaningful. Then there's Cutter, played by John Hurd, with a kind of furious, broken brilliance. A Vietnam vet, missing an arm, an eye, and maybe his last bit of hope. When a girl turns up murdered, Cutter sees a conspiracy. Bone sees something much worse, the truth. What makes Cutter's Way different? It's the mood, the weight of everything unsaid, the way the camera lingers just a little too long, the way every conversation feels like a memory you're not sure actually happened. It's set in sun-drenched Santa Barbara, but this isn't the California dream. It's the hangover, the one that comes when you realize you'll never be who you thought you'd become. People call this a neo-noir, but it's more than that. It's about loyalty, about disillusionment, about what happens when the world doesn't care what you've lost. It slipped through the cracks in '81. It barely made a whisper, but the ones who find it, they never forget. Some films don't just tell a story, they make you question everything you thought you knew. Man Facing Southeast 1986 is one of those films. Quiet, hypnotic, and impossible to shake once it gets inside you. A psychiatric hospital. A mysterious patient. He calls himself Rantes, claims he's not from here, not from Earth. He's either completely delusional or he's seeing something no one else can. And the doctor assigned to him? He's not sure anymore. What makes this film so haunting? It's the stillness, the way it observes instead of explaining. The way Rantes stares at the world like he's trying to understand it, while the world refuses to understand him. Every word, every glance, carries this weight, like he's on the verge of saying something that will change everything. It plays like science fiction, but there's nothing futuristic about it. It's a film about Shosh humanity, what it means to be good, what it means to be alone. It's about faith, about doubt, about the lines between madness and enlightenment. It's been compared to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, to Stalker, to K-Pax. But Man Facing Southeast is its own thing, eerie, introspective, and achingly beautiful. Nobody talks about this movie. Maybe because they don't know how. Maybe because it's not meant to be discussed. It's meant to be felt. Some stories don't fit neatly into a box. They linger in the spaces between. Lawn Dogs, 1997, is one of those films, quiet but electric, a coming-of-age tale wrapped in something much darker. A gated community. A working-class outsider. A friendship that shouldn't exist. Mischa Barton, only 10 years old, plays Devon, a girl trapped in a world of perfection she doesn't belong to. Sam Rockwell is Trent, a lawnmower in his 20s, rough edges, unpolished, misunderstood. They're both outsiders in different ways, and they see each other in a way no one else does, but the world doesn't like things that don't fit. And this friendship? It starts to feel dangerous to the people who live behind their perfect fences. The film looks like a fairy tale, soft light, golden fields, but there's something unsettling beneath it, the way adults watch but don't see, the way innocence is something that gets stolen, not lost. Rockwell is phenomenal here, restless, wounded, full of things he can't say. Barton? Unbelievable. She doesn't act, she just exists on screen, and you feel every second of it. Lawn Dogs was barely noticed when it came out. Maybe it was too uncomfortable, maybe it hit too close to home, but once you see it, you can't forget it. Movies like these, they don't just entertain, they stay with you. The kind you think about days later, the ones that feel like secrets waiting to be found. And that's what Vintage Verse is all about. Digging up the forgotten, the overlooked, the films that deserve a second chance. So if you love discovering movies that slip through the cracks, hit subscribe. Turn on the bell so you never miss a deep dive into cinema's hidden corners. Because the best stories, they're the ones you haven't seen yet.